Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mindrise podcast. I am joined today by our Mindrise coaches, Danielle Ford and Jen Wielage. We are jamming about burnout. We have all been there at one time or another, and we're going to be not only giving you some of the warning signs of burnout, but we're also going to be giving you our playlist, our toolkit on how to repair from burnout, the things that we do, and when we identify that we're going through burnout. So put your earbuds in, dial into this episode. If you haven't already subscribed on YouTube, Apple, we're on Google Play, as well as Spotify. If you want to check us out and watch us, go and check us out on YouTube. And without further ado, we're diving into burnout, the warning signs, as well as some of our very, very favorite tools on how to make the repair from experiencing burnout. Enjoy. And for everybody who's now tuning in, I'm going to share with you guys what I'm talking to the team about, because of course we hop on, we talk about 4,000 things before we actually record the podcast. But what I was sharing with them is that I was invited to my daughter's camp today to talk about owning your power. And I gave them the self-talk cycle, which is from the book, Own Your Power, about, so that could be like their tool that they used. And it was interesting. Like first I had them like round robin, the nice thing that they would say to themselves. And, you know, of course they're like nervous, they're shy. And then they got on a roll, you know, I can do it. I believe in myself. And then I had them make a bully face. And so then they were like a bully. And then I said, you know, tell me what your inner bully says. And it was, of course, it was eye-opening and somewhat like sad, but we never want to hear a little kid say that I'm stupid or that I hate myself. But I mean, I've been doing this work, as I know you guys have, for a long time, whether it was doing the work for myself or doing the work with our clients. And the truth is, like, the same crap we're saying to ourselves in our 30s, 40s, 50s, it's like, this goes all the way back, guys. Like, I just sat in a room of, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth graders, and they're saying the same things that sometimes our clients, and I know even ourselves, get stuck on, right? They like, I'm not capable.
Yeah, but isn't it true that it starts back then and we just keep on, it's almost like that record player that keeps on that same groove, and we don't even realize it unless we are asked. Like those kids probably didn't even know that those thoughts were in their mind until they were even prompted. And I think that's what, as adults, we start to question, like, why am I doing this? Why am I staying stuck? Why can't I go forward in my life? And then we, you know, as adults, we question. I know I did. And that's how I came to you, Bailey, as my coach, to say, you know, what's going on? Why am I getting in my way all the time? Like, and then the questions that coaching, you know, is so great for is, you know, asking such powerful questions like, so what do you think about you? Like, I had never even thought about what I thought about me until I was asked.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized how much stuff was in there that was so negative about myself. I can't do this. I'm horrible. You know, I am not organized. I just had so many beliefs about myself that went unquestioned for all those years. But I think they started back when I was a kid. Like that's when I first probably, you know, got those beliefs way back when. I just
if you think about them, they're not, it's like they're things that your brain says to you that you would never say to anybody else. Like you never treat anybody the way that our bullies inside treat us.
Right. Well, even asking this group of kids when they said like, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I hate myself. And I just said, raise your hand if the way that you talk to yourself, you wouldn't talk to someone else that way. And they all like raised their hand. They said, oh no, you wouldn't, you know, talk to somebody else like that because then you would be the bully. And I'm like, exactly. But I think you make a good point, Jen, is the fact that left unchecked, right? If these kids just had this narrative, much like us as adults, then had this narrative and never really like questioned it or put it out there for someone to say, no, let's try and change that around. Or, hey, are you even seeing how those negative words create those negative feelings, create those negative actions, and how that is perpetuated? Like, we're just going to get stuck in that cycle.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you did this, because I think it's so important to start as kids, because some of the things that I've learned in the last couple of years, I'm like, why did anybody teach me this when I was younger?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, nobody told me that my thoughts create my feelings.
Right.
And
Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like most people, the average person doesn't realize that. And that's so key to everything.
And I think that's what's so important about the work that we're all doing in this world is helping build that awareness. Because you can go through your whole life and you don't even hear the words that your inner critic is saying to you.
Sure.
If you don't have that awareness, like you can't check it.
Right. There's no ability to discern. It's just like, that's just the inner running, monologue that's happening in my head.
Yeah, it's like the autopilot, right? The autopilot. And I remember, Bailey, you always said, getting in the driver's seat of your life instead of being on autopilot, being at the wheel and realizing that we have the ability to think on purpose. We have the ability to believe whatever we want to believe, which is amazing when you think about it.
Well, and I said to the kids, I said, when you throw yourself on the floor, or when you pout, or when you scream, or when you cry, is it because you're in a good mood or you're feeling good? They're like, no, I'm taking the self-talk cycle in reverse. I'm like, okay, that's the action. Let's look back. How are you feeling? And, they're all saying these, how they were feeling these negative emotions. So what were the words in your head? And so it's like, you can see their little synapses firing, and they're like connecting the dots.
This isn't fair. She got more than me.
Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. All the things that we throw ourselves on the floor about.
Yeah.
But the reason why I wanted to even start our podcast, sharing with you guys about this and us having this conversation to kick it off, is because our topic for today is burnout. But backing the train up, burnout doesn't happen by accident, right? It happens, and we didn't intend for it to happen. It's not necessarily intentional, but a lot of times, at least my perspective is, sometimes it happens because we've lacked awareness that we were burning ourselves out, either through our actions or our feelings or our words, right? Like, when we talk about burnout, we didn't just wake up one day and it's like, oh crap, I'm burnt out. Right? Sometimes it comes, for me, when I was burnt out, I didn't have awareness that I was burnt out. I was just going through the motions. But do you guys find for yourselves, as well as what you've experienced talking with your clients, that when it comes to burnout, sometimes it does feel like something that hits you like a ton of bricks, but it's been brewing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's not an overnight thing. I'll share one of my steps along my career path. I took a job that quickly I allowed to become 3 jobs in one when people left. And I was burning the candle at both ends and both sides. And it was probably a 6-month buildup over time, but I had zero awareness of what burnout even was at that point. Until it looked like I got home. I was, on a plane, at least 1 to probably 5 planes every week, not sleeping, working 15 hours a day. And I came home and I was super sick, couldn't be diagnosed, was just sick for 3 weeks straight, and nothing helped, nothing made me feel better. And I was like, I just have to quit this job. And that was it. I didn't know what burnout looked like until I was in a puddle on the floor, couldn't keep my head up because I was so exhausted. But I had no idea. There was no awareness. There was no, what was burnout? I had no clue. And looking back now, I'm like, oh, of course I was burnt out. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't exercising, I had no routine. I was probably not drinking enough water and just doing the basic things that we need to do as a human being to keep ourselves healthy. And I had no emotional or mental or coaching practice where I was checking myself along the way. So
right,
it was just this perfect recipe for burnout.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe I'm dead wrong in saying that like we don't do it intentionally. It doesn't sound to me like you were doing that with any awareness that that's what you were doing and any intention. So is it fully just like lack of awareness on our part? Is it just a matter of like, we're so pushed or we're pushing ourselves? I mean, I know, and I've openly shared that a large part of my sense of self-worth or identity had always come from achievement. So no wonder I had no hobbies. Like I was either like praised for achieving in school, and like that's where I got attention or a sense of self, or praised for working my butt off in like all of my 4,000 jobs.
Yeah.
And it was just like, so no wonder I didn't spend any time like cultivating personal interests or self-care, because no one was saying, good job with that self-care. Good job sleeping in. You know, like you drank 8 glasses of water today, gold star. Like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a lot of that, I'm same way on the achievement, and a lot of that for me came from like finding value for myself outside of myself. Like I was always wanting somebody else to validate that I was doing a good job, and if I wasn't burning the candle at both ends, then like it must have meant that I wasn't doing what I was capable of, or what I was, I wasn't doing my best. And that's just like, hello, not true. Because you can't do your best if your own cup's not full.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that we have this mistaken notion that busyness and burnout just happens to us, kind of like what Bailey was saying before and what Danielle was saying with like, almost like it's the job that's doing it. But I like the way Danielle said, like I was doing it. And sometimes we don't realize that it's us, and which is good news, because if it's us, we can change it. If it's the circumstance being the job or whatever it is, then we have no control over that. But it's always us and our ability to, say yes or say no. And why we do it, like Bailey was saying, is we want that recognition and we want that like pat on the back, like you're working so hard, good job. And nobody does reward us for, sitting down on the couch and just like resting. Like no one's like, yeah, great job. But it's also like, just really good to know that we have the ability to decide on, how we want to see our work life. Like I was just talking to a girlfriend and she said, she just got kind of like laid off from her job, or she's like retired now from that career, and she's deciding on her next move. And she said, what keeps getting in the way is my desire to just want to have fun and go to the beach and, not want to work anymore. And I was like, yeah, but the thing is, we can do both. We can work and we can also have fun. There is room for both if we desire that. And when we desire that, we can create that by saying like, okay, how can I work and have fun at the same time? Like, how can I do this job and also take time out for myself? Like that is a thing. I mean, I know that I wasn't doing it in my past. I am now, but it is still a struggle. Like, I'm not going to say like I have it down. I still struggle with that work-life balance and that saying yes to everything. That's pretty much why I'm here right now, because I called in and I was like, I had plans for today and I was going to go to lunch with my friend and it canceled. I'm like, do I go on the podcast or just so I take the time to be alone and by myself and do nothing, go to the beach, whatever. And I was like, I don't want to let the team down. But also I really wanted to talk about this because it's such it's a very important topic, burnout. Like, I feel like it's a necessary thing to kind of look at and say, okay, why is it? What is happening here?
I'm sure you've all heard the saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's true. It's really hard to make change in our life without taking the time to actually look at the way that we're showing up in the world and the thoughts that we have that really dictate the way that we show up in the world. That is why we created the 90-day Elevate Journal. You're definitely going to want to grab this, and it's available now on Amazon. The 90-day Elevate Journal is essentially designed for you to take a deep dive into what it really means to rise, transform, and lead. Grab your copy for less than $20. You can always visit www.themindrise.com/elevate, or check it out in the show notes. But you need to grab your copy of the 90-Day Journal now and really elevate to the next level.
So Jen, one of the things that I heard Danielle saying when she was like flying here and everywhere and doing the job of 3 people was that, you know, looking back, it was like her eating habits had plummeted, like water consumption, sleep, her exercise. So those were like 4 red flag indicators to her of like system shut down because you were going. So Jen, for you, what are your indicators? What are the smoke alarms that go off for you that you know that, yep, system's starting to shut down, or I'm approaching burnout? Are there any telltale signs that you've experienced in the past or even like recognize present day?
Well, one of the things I try to do is plan out my week ahead of time because I feel like it's the most important thing that we can do for ourselves. I believe it is, but it's also one of the hardest things that we can do for ourselves, because when we plan out our week ahead of time and we schedule, and I talk to my clients about this because everybody wants to, you know, get everything done and also, you know, be productive, but also like, I always say, start with your time off, like the time that you're going to, you know, rest or your free time. Let's plan that first for the week. So for me, if I don't plan my week ahead of time, because there are times that I don't know, I just forget to do it, or I go off the radar, like, okay, I didn't plan my week. That's when I start to, you know, system starts to break down. Okay, you know, because then I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm kind of going on that autopilot again. I'm not living intentionally. I'm not living according to a plan. Because the difference between us and the animals is that animals are reactive. They're instinctive. They're not planning anything. They just go on, you know, instinct. Whereas a human being, we have the ability to plan. And I think that is so important. So if I don't plan out my week ahead of time and I don't tell myself what I'm going to do, and like, I'm telling myself what I'm going to do. So it's like, you know, it's all what I want. And that's what I talk to my clients about. I'm like, it's what you desire. You can put anything you want on there. No one's telling you what to do. And we don't have to do any of it. And when I say we don't have to do any of it, it makes me feel like so good to think that in my own life. And then when I tell my clients that, they're like, oh, that's true. I don't really have to do any of it. I'm like, yeah, you don't even have to feed your kids if you don't want to. And they're like, what? I have to feed my kids. I'm like, no, you don't. Is that true? Do you have to feed your kids? They're like, kind of. I'm like, no, you want to feed your kids because you want your kids to grow and like, you want to feed them. Like that's part. So it's like switching that from like, I have to do this. I have so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
To like, no, I really want to do this. I want to brush my teeth because I know that if I don't, my teeth are going to rot, you know? So it's like switching that, I think for me has made all the difference in the world. I don't have to do anything. I want to do it. Like even the dishes in the sink, when my husband leaves the dishes in the sink and I'm like so resentful of him because he left dishes in the sink, I'm like stewing mad. And then I'm like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do his dishes. I want to do the dishes because I don't want them in the sink. So it's my choice.
Mm-hmm. The power of choice.
Yeah, just realizing that I get to kind of create my schedule.
Yes.
But to answer your question, sorry, I'm like way.
No. I think that's an important mindset hack for everyone, Jen.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference in the narrative and the vibration of, just like we're talking about words, feelings, actions, self-talk cycle. I have to, like, whatever it is. How do you feel? Sometimes we feel resentful. Sometimes we feel annoyed. Sometimes we feel just like disinterested. And therefore our actions are like, I'm washing the dishes, right? We're like, oh, here kids eat, right? Or whatever it is, right? I'm working out. Oh, I have to do that. Versus like I shifted. I'm like, I want to, right?
Yeah.
And then how do we feel? Like, oh, okay. Like I feel like I'm more in the driver's seat. I feel more in control. I feel positive. I feel motivated. I feel like I have a hand in the outcome of my life. So so then how do we show up in our actions? And we have a little bit more, skipping our step. Where we're just like, now when I'm washing the dishes, instead of the resentment like seeping through, it's more like, oh, now I can feel, because everyone talks about mindfulness. Well, how do we think mindfulness actually happens? Like, now I can feel the warm water in my hands. Now I can smell, the soap or the bubbles. Like, we are more present in our actions because we shifted our mindset, right? Mindfulness doesn't happen by like ready, set, be mindful, or ready, set, be rested. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. So that simple shift of I get to feed my kids. Or the thing is, we don't even look at other options. Like, sometimes we don't feel like we want to feed our kids, say, for example. I mean, that's like the worst example.
Poor children. These
hungry kids. But I mean, there are other options, right? There's always other options. We can call maybe we have a mother in the area, or maybe we have a friend, or maybe we have, there are other options. It's not only just I do it or no one does it. So there are other options too. And I think that is so important when we think about burnout, because I think that we oftentimes, as women and high achievers, like most of the people that, are subscribers to this podcast are high achievers and ambitious and driven.
Sure.
And so we have this like superwoman, superhero, woman, man, Superman complex. Like, we want to take care of it all ourselves. And
right. Just maintaining the illusion of control, but
we think we have to do it or it's not going to get done right. But there's always options. So if you're feeling burned out, and that's what I say, like, for me, when I'm starting to feel like, if I don't plan out my week, I start to feel like, okay, I'm not doing the things that I want to do. I'm just kind of like on autopilot. And like, then a lot of the things that usually I put down ahead of time for the week ahead, I'll write a whole list of things that I want to accomplish for the week. If I don't put them down on paper, they stay in my head, and I just have this like noise in my head, like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other thing. When are you going to do that? Oh my gosh. If I plan it ahead of time, then I know exactly when I'm doing it. And then when I know, okay, there's laundry there, but that doesn't get done until Thursday at 3. That's when I put down that I was going to do laundry.
Right.
It sounds like it's really like, it sounds like very, like, a lot of people don't like it because they don't feel like it's like, people just want to live spontaneously, and I want to go with the flow, and it sounds so rigid to plan your life, but it's the most powerful thing that we can do for ourselves. Very difficult to follow through because we never feel like doing what we said we were going to do. That's a whole other thing, but yeah.
Right. So if I know I'm antsy in my little state here. If your solution, your magic wand for feeling those pangs of burnout or exhaustion or just even disinterest is, so it sounds like it's understanding that you don't have to, instead you want to, you desire to, you get to. So it's a mindset shift, and that you like to wave your magic wand and use your calendar and the way that you schedule as your tools for addressing burnout. Danielle, what are yours? Like, we know what some of your indicators are, but what are some of the things that you do when you're starting to feel those pangs of burnout? Like, what are those? We know some of your smoke alarms, but like, how do you turn the bus around?
It's definitely like just one, taking a moment to actually check in with myself. And I think one of my like most recent biggest indicators is when I find myself complaining about something like frequently. I'm like, oh, there's something else underneath all of these complaints, because like there's no reason for me to be, super whiny about really anything. Like, I have a great life. I love my life. We woke up this morning, so what else do we need, And you just start there. But I started to check in and say, like, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Like, where am I feeling that? And then why? And start diving in a little bit deeper and doing the work. And is that serving me? Like, complaining about it is most likely not serving me.
Right.
And it starts there for me. And then it's putting a routine in place, or like saying, how can I do something differently? And a really, really, really big tool for me has been asking for help. Like, I never used to ask anybody for help. I was strong, independent woman. I'm a hustler. I can do 100,000 things. I can balance all of the plates, and eventually all those plates are going to fall. So I
Right.
think for me, that's been a huge lesson and a huge relief. Like, you actually don't have to do this whole thing by yourself. And like, most likely you have other people in your life that you can ask for help that we just choose not to a lot of the times. And a lot of the times, anybody who I ask for help for, they're like, hell yeah, you help me, I'm going to help you. Like, they're excited about it, you know? So it's not, you don't have to do it by yourself. And I think that's like a really big thing, probably especially for a lot of the people that listen to this podcast in our community, because we are such high achievers, but you're not alone. We got your back. And if you need a friend, we're here for it. So
Yeah.
for me. How about for you, Bailey? What are your tools that you use when your smoke alarms go off?
Yeah. So my smoke alarms are also like system shut down. And like I'll know that I'm shutting down when staying up too late. If I have one smoke alarm, that's always it. I'm staying up too late, whether it's staying up too late to work or staying up too late to like binge watch something. It's never a smoke alarm when I'm staying up late to read a really good book. But I know, like, it, we develop relationships with ourselves. So mine is staying up late, because I'm staying up late to work. The narrative that's driving that usually is like, I'm behind the 8 ball, somebody needs something, I'm not working hard enough or fast enough, right? So that would be me staying up late to work. And then if I'm staying up late to like binge watch shows, there's some super subconscious, because I don't even have words to it, narrative, but it's something in the ballpark of, I'm not getting enough time for me, right? So maybe I am burning myself out during the day, whether it's burning myself out through work or momming, or like you're saying, like not asking for help. But those, like any super late nights, not super late nights, like out with friends or reading books or, hopping in the tub. But that if there's a screen involved, and it's late, I am in trouble. It's my like big key indicator. And then same as you guys in terms of tools. So I do like to use my calendar. And just like Jen said, sometimes people shy away from that because they feel like, oh, there's no room for spontaneity. But instead, for me, I find that I use the calendar as scaffolding, right? So it helps to create structure, but not the kind of structure where you live and die on it. But instead, if I know that I've got to make a bunch of phone calls, whether it's like the insurance company or licensing or whatever it is, I'll put that block on my calendar. And therefore, I don't get to stress out on Monday or Tuesday about that, or have that repeating in my head. Instead, I know that's happening, like Jen said, like Wednesday at 3. It's on the calendar. So the calendar is a big tool. Leaning in, like you said, Danielle, like leaning into other people. I have long battled, it's like a lifetime battle with my narrative around, I've got to do it all myself. Mm-hmm. Like, we're all guilty of that. That's the fuel of the high achiever. And in many ways, like, I didn't know who I was if I wasn't going and doing and achieving all on my own. Don't worry about it. Oh, you need this done. I'll have it done, and done yesterday, and like T's crossed and I's dotted. So that's something that's been new for me, is like reaching out to you guys and saying like, hey guys, I need help with this. Or reaching out to other parents and saying like, hey, could you pick Phoebe up, or I'll do a trade. I never turned down, like, my neighbors offer to make dinner. I'm like, yes. Oh, what do you, I don't care. You're cooking. Perfect. I'll eat it. Because there's like, my tombstone will never say like, here lies Bailey. She did everything herself.
Yeah.
And when we get ourselves into that mindset that everything needs to be done by us, so we can have the S on our chest as like a super person, it's an illusion. It's an illusion of control. It's an illusion of maintaining safety by, being in charge of all the variables. And frankly, it fries out our nervous system. So that's probably like the third tool that I've been really leaning into, is checking in with my nervous systems. Like you said, Danielle, like checking in with myself. Jen, you said like, you check in with yourself. And I check in with my nervous system, and like literally treat my nervous system like in that fan that's in our laptops, where it's like, if I hear that fan going, if I find my nervous system up here, I know that I need to bring it down.
Mhm.
And then it's like Operation Self-Care, like what's going to help me to get grounded and bring it down? Because if I don't bring it down and I let my nervous system like rattle at a super high level of stress and burnout, then inevitably my self-talk goes to shit. Like I'm staying up way too late. I feel like crap, and like nothing productive will happen after that. It's just, it's not good. So when I check in my nervous system and I'm like, ooh, I'm running a little too hot. That fan's going. Okay, what do I need to do to bring it down? Maybe I need to go outside or be in nature or step away from whatever project that I'm working on.
Mhm.
And it gets me back to me, because without that, it, inevitably what we are, like Jen said, what's the difference between humans and animals and the mammal kingdom? It's the reactivity. And I find that when I'm not using my tools, I have high levels of reactivity. And for everyone who's listening to the podcast right now, I'm going to give you the geek version here. High levels of reactivity leads to high levels of cortisol. High levels of cortisol is indicated with our high levels of anxiety. High levels of cortisol is also, any of the weight that we keep around our stomach, right? And why do we do that? Because biologically we are built for survival, and that's the area of protection, protecting the major organs. So all of this stuff is connected, right? People say, "Oh, I can't lose weight," or okay, well, let's check on your stress. Let's check on your burnout.
Yeah. And it's also like really, and I think I said this earlier, it's so important to realize that we are the ones. It's not anything outside of ourselves that is causing us to feel a certain way.
Right.
It's our own thoughts about it. So when I just moved recently, one of the things that I decided ahead of time was that I wasn't going to make it hard. I wasn't going to be overwhelmed by it, and I was going to have fun doing it. And I really was like, let's see how this goes, let me have a different mindset about it. And it was actually the best thing. It was like so much more. Everybody around me was saying, "Oh my gosh, you're moving. That's so hard. How are you doing all this?" And I was like, it's totally fine. And I know that sounds like, one of the things I like to do is say, like, how can you change your thought about something to really like change the way you feel about it? Because if you're feeling like dread about something, like doing something, like even if it's just making the bed or like something simple, like doing the dishes, like if you're feeling that dread, it's because you're thinking about it like it's a horrible thing. Like you said before, Bailey, it's like, no, we don't, like, our mind is our best tool. So if we want to enjoy the process, because let's face it, life is not about being like, feeling good all the time. We're always going to do things that are like not something that we would want to do, or like, sometimes we feel like we have to do certain things, but in that case, we can change our minds about it. We can decide to think about it in a different way that helps us to feel more like, and just realizing that it's not that something outside of us is creating that stress for us. It's our thoughts about it that's creating the stress. Our thoughts are stressful. Our thoughts are stressful. If I'm thinking that this move is going to be amazing and easy and great, and I'm going to have fun doing it, I mean, it's like I'm all in and I'm just like going with the flow, and like, and something goes wrong, like something breaks. I don't have that like, oh my gosh, now this is terrible. And I'm just like, okay, part of moving, just part of the process, it's like just being more like open to accepting and like changing our thoughts to be more like helping us to feel more excited. And like I always say, overwhelmed, because a lot of people are, they say that they're overwhelmed, or they identify as overwhelmed people.
Identify as overwhelmed. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're identifying as an overwhelmed person, maybe it's your thoughts that you need to just look at. Why?
Right.
What am I thinking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jen, I think that's a really great point. And again, it's coming from that place of like scarcity and lack, and that's where our fear and our icky stuff comes from. And it's changing from scarcity and lack to like gratitude and abundance, and having that like just appreciation for all of the things that we do have and the things that we get to do. So I know we've talked about this before, but for anybody that is on the podcast that hasn't heard this before, one of our students from the Mindrise gave me the amazing tool of a credit list. So when you get to the end of the day or a week, you give yourself credit for all the things that you actually got done, because it's easy to look at, the list of things that we had to do or what was on our calendar that fell off our calendar, got replaced by something else, or the air conditioning broke and the whole day went awry. And it's easy to get in the mindset of looking at like all the things that you didn't do that you were supposed to do.
Right.
Mhm.
So how do you challenge yourself to say like, oh, but look at all the things that I did get done? And it's amazing that despite whatever circumstance happened in my life, we ended up getting all these other things done, or we had a day to ourselves, or whatever that looks like, and just changing from a lack and scarcity to that abundant and gratitude and grateful mindset.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the biggest tools that helps us to bounce back. Because I know that when I had down a rabbit hole, like that rabbit hole is like, it's deep down there. I'm like, whoa, boy, like, I don't know if there's a rope that long enough. And one of the things that does allow me to be buoyant or come back up when I've had a struggle of any sort has been like anchoring back into gratitude. Even if it's like the simplest things, like I am grateful for 4 walls. I am grateful for electricity. I would absolutely suck back in the day, like on the Oregon Trail or something. Like I would have failed miserably at that. I'm a big fan of electricity and running water. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, anchoring into gratitude, I think is a great tool. And like you said, the credit list, because you're 100% right. Like even with my to-do list, and I get so excited, I make little boxes and I check them off, or I take my Post-its and I'll crumple them up and I feel so victorious. And at the end of the day, I'm now looking at what I didn't cross off. And sometimes that gives me anxiety. And even that like flip, if I can look at the list and say like, okay, you had 10 things on here, 8 are crossed off. You have 8 black marker lines, because although I put a box to check, I also put a line through it. So exciting. Instead of focusing on the 2 things that didn't get done, let me focus on the 80% that was accomplished, giving that credit. And I also want to put a plug in here for the 90-day journal, because that's one of the best ways to check in with yourself. Like journaling, making those lists. Like Jen says, she starts with her calendar for looking at the week ahead. That has been by far one of my biggest tools. And it's also one of my smoke alarms. When I find that I'm not journaling, it's just like what you said, Danielle, about like, I'm not eating right, I'm not drinking the water, I'm not sleeping right. It's definitely a smoke alarm for me when I'm not journaling regularly, that I'm off my routine. And so, yeah, I'm making a plug for the 90-day journal, and we'll make sure that we put it in the show notes, because I know that having a regular journaling practice allows me to get off that merry-go-round that causes burnout and take an inventory of where I'm at right now. So that if I am like kind of teetering, or I am taking on too much, that allows me to check myself and then say, okay, I need to phone a friend, or I need to lean into gratitude, or actually I'm doing a lot right now and I need to take tomorrow off, or say no to an obligation because it's just too much.
Yeah. And I think like honoring your rest and the times that you just take to just do nothing is so important. And it's not something that we think about, or that's like normal in our hustle culture that we've lived in for so long. But like we all need to rest at some point, and that might not just be sleep time for 8 hours a night. Like you may need a day, you may need a week off to just chill out and let your nervous system rebalance and just like
Recalibrate, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Have you guys ever had that happen for you, where you actually had to like either cancel a plan or turn down something that you maybe were looking forward to, or even reschedule a vacation, something where you had to put a boundary in place and almost like take a stand for yourself for rest? You ever have that happen? And like, how did you handle it?
I mean, in the last, I would say, couple of years, I've been really good at blocking out time for that rest that I need, because I really know how important it was. I mean, I became a balance coach for a reason, because my life was completely off kilter. It was mostly work. I was not focused on self-care. I remember Bailey saying when you were, coaching me once, you said, no one's going to come and knocking on your door and telling you like, hey, Jen, make a bath for yourself. Here's some lotion to put on your legs. Like no one's going to do that. And so I have to do that for myself. But yeah, so I've been ever since learning about that, okay, I'm in control of my life and that, I get to decide how I want my life to look. Like I've just been planning that time in my day to meditate or to just sit in silence and just allow myself to do nothing. It's hard for a high achiever and a go-getter. I want to be badass. I want to do it all. I want to, I don't want to say no. I don't want to disappoint, but like, so I haven't really, honestly, like can't think of a time where I had to do that because I've had so much more available time because I've been able to make the time for myself that I need. Then I feel like I can be there for other things. I mean, there are things that I say yes to still to this day. Like I said yes to doing something recently that I was like, why did I say yes to that? Because that seems like, a little too much on my plate right now. Why did I say yes? And I'm thinking, do I need to come out and say, maybe this is not the right time for me to be in this position? It was like for Toastmasters, they asked me to be the vice president of membership or something like that. So I was like, yes. And then I realized like, it's not this little tiny insignificant thing. Like I'm going to need to put a lot of time and energy into this. So I'm like, so that is one time I will say like, now I'm starting to rethink, like, did I take on too much? So, and I have to see if I can handle another thing on my plate right now, but yeah, but it is good to, when you do take that time for yourself. And my mom, when I was little, my mom used to sing this little ditty. It was like, she just used to whistle it. And it was like a tarantella type tune. And it was like, lucky, lucky, lucky me. I'm a lucky son of a gun. I work 8 hours. I sleep 8 hours. I have 8 hours of fun. Dun, 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 dun. I was like, that is the best thing ever. Like she works 8 hours, she sleeps 8 hours, she has 8 hours of fun. I'm like, that is perfect. And it's like, is life really like that? It doesn't seem like it is, but it can be. We can, we can work and we can sleep and we can have fun at this all at the, in the same day. Right. So I just try to, if it's something that I feel like it's too much, I will say no. I didn't in this last situation, but I'm now thinking about it and I'm going to see if it is tilting me over to the other side. And if it is, I'm just going to have to be honest and say it's not the right time for me. They need to find somebody else to do it. But for the most part, I feel like I say yes to the things that I know that I can do and try not to take on too much.
I love this example, Jen, because you're even like, this is in real time. You're like, if it tilts over too much for you. And I think you can't know what's too much for you if you don't have a relationship with yourself. So like for you, maybe for you, the tilting over too much means that you can't go to band practice, or that you don't have enough date nights with Derek, or that you have to, say no to plans with friends. And it's just like, actually, it's not the life that I want to live. Is like, those might be too much. Too much for Danielle might be like working till 2 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, oh, I think that's too much. Like everybody has a different barometer and threshold of too much. And I'm even finding, I'm so curious if this is the case with you guys too, but I'm finding in this season of my life right now where I have a 7-year-old and I'm running a company and like I have my clients and you guys, and at this season of my life right now, I don't want to go and do 7 billion things at once. And pre-COVID, I will also say that was a definite demarcation point for me. I'm being super discerning about what I said yes and no to, because in the beginning, when I was starting the company, I said yes to everything because I was on a no fail policy, right? And when we have that narrative in our mind of like, you have to say yes to everything because you want this business to be successful. I mean, I would be flying 2 or 3 times a week and to go speak here, speak there. Like I was gone because I wanted the business to be a success. And now I'm super discerning about what I say yes and no to, what I bother to get on a plane about. And what I'll, what speaking gigs that I will do, just really because in this season of my life, I want to focus on nesting. Like I want to focus on what's right here, right now, rather than always like chasing. And it wasn't even chasing for the acquisition. It was almost chasing because I was so afraid of failing. So if I kept myself moving, you can't hit a moving target. I'll just keep on moving so that I don't fail. And little did I know that doing that would lend itself to burning myself out.
Yeah, so that reminds me of the other thing I wanted to say is like priorities. Like, what are your priorities?
Right.
Like, and they change at different times in your life.
Mhm.
And so like writing down what are your top priorities and really like planning your life with those priorities in mind. So
Right.
if it's not in line with, it doesn't feel aligned with what your priorities are, then you can know exactly what to say no to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%, Jen. And I feel like I have been finding more like value in my time, in my free time, and how I spend that free time than in money. So I've been choosing not to work as many weekends because I value going to sit on the beach and read a juicy book or learn something new instead of being at work and making a little bit of extra pocket change. And I know what that means for the rest of my week. And maybe I'm a little tighter on the purse strings, but my time to me now in this season of my life is more valuable than that pocket change. So
Right. Maybe, and it could even be like actual seasonality. I mean, in the summertime, and I don't know about you guys as much for myself, but I find that my clients are either canceling or rescheduling, or it's just really quiet the end of July and that beginning of August, because everyone is just in a different mode.
Mhm.
They're not necessarily in work on themselves mode. A lot of times they're in a totally different mode. And I know I'm with you, Danielle. Like, given the option, I'll tell you what. I went to the library. I love the library. Bury me in the library, please. But yeah, I went to the library. I picked up like 3 beach reads. Everybody in each one of those beach reads is definitely like, making out. They're all like soap operas. And yeah, I just want to tuck into a juicy book. I want to absorb some vitamin D. And I want to look back in January and February and think, God, I had such a great summer, And the same thing in January and February, I want to be skiing or like, I don't know, baking pies or, cozying up and like living my life according to the season and not just going at 10,000 miles an hour and missing out on the places that I should be savoring. Because when you're burned out, you can't savor. You're just not even there to enjoy what you're doing around you.
Yeah, it's like that on your grave, no one really says, or the last words we have are never like, I wish I would have worked more, or I wish I would have, it's
right. And we're in a unique position. I feel we're in a unique position because we love what we do.
Yeah.
I could do it in zone of genius. Like I could do it all day long, every single day, get up the next morning and do it again. And I think that sometimes that could be tricky in the best positive way, right? It could be tricky because I could do it too much and forget to put myself on the menu.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is about that balance. And when you do look at the calendar, and you're like, oh, I got 5 or 6 clients back to back tomorrow. Yeah, I'm no one, like I can't say no, or I can't say yes tomorrow night to going out or doing something big. Like after that, I'm probably just like going to need to check in with my book or go for a swim or, go for a run, something to kind of wind my system down. I love what I do, but it's finding that balance. Yeah. I know. I love jamming with you guys. We talk about this stuff all day long. So as we wrap up, guys, of course, get yourself a copy of the 90-day journal. Get yourself on a regular schedule where you are taking that time to check in with yourself. Take a look at your calendar. Identify like we're talking about today. Identify what your smoke alarms are. Because if you don't know, then chances are you could be burning yourself out right now and not even aware of it. So until you take that time to pull the arrow back so that you can shoot it further forward and really have a conversation with yourself, it's highly likely that you are going to find yourself burnt out, even if it is in doing the things that you love, because it happens to the best of us. So thanks to our coaches, Danielle and Jen, for hopping on today and jamming about burnout. We'll make sure to guys to check out the show notes. If you have any questions, just reach out to us, because like Danielle said, we're here for it.
Thanks, Bailey.
Got your back.
Bye.
Thanks, Bailey.